Welcome to Falcons Drip, your go-to source for Falcons news and draft coverage. I'm Thon, founder and voice of Falcons Drip. I wanted to welcome back anybody who listened to our last show and also welcome any newcomers who are tuning in for the first time. I'll be joined today by Jeff and Ferg, and we're going to be diving into the quarterbacks, especially Matt Ryan, and then going into the guys who are going to be backing him up this year. So that being said, let's kind of jump into this thing. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Very happy to be here today and start talking about the roster and who we think will make it and not make it. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really dialed in for this session. Relaxed, focused. Yeah, I really want to pick apart this roster and just hear from everybody here. Hear from what everyone's opinion is. Anyway, yeah, I'm just ready to get into it.
And with that, we're going to start with, I said this already, but we're going to start with quarterbacks, which I think is probably the easiest to kind of dissect on this roster. We're sitting there. We've got Matt Ryan, A.J. McCarron, and Felipe Franks. So just when you look at it, it's Matt Ryan's the clear-cut starter. No one's even contesting him for that in 2021. Ex-MVP, but he's coming in with a new regime, new scheme, and Matt has, through his career, had a down year when he in the first time of a new coordinator. But I don't know if that'll be the same because he's older in years. He's seen a lot more. So we could see Matt just have a completely different version of the first year and possibly be an MVP candidate with Arthur Smith involved.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Just the season in general. I really like this new coaching staff. I think everyone's excited about it, given the production and success. Matt is, as you said, he's a clear-cut starter, so there's not really much to talk about there. I don't know what's going on between Felipe Franks and A.J. McCarron. I suspect A.J. McCarron will, I suspect he'll be the solid, he'll have a solid place as the backup. Excuse me. Felipe Franks, he's not really what Atlanta needs. I don't think there's plenty of guys that could fill a Felipe Franks role who are likely going to make the roster. He's not a great passer. He's more of a goal line, kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Tim Tebow. Not exactly, but just that style of play.
So when I look at Felipe, he's a guy who has all the tools to be great and just hasn't put it together yet. So he's the kind of guy that can sit. You want to have, he's a great third string quarterback.
Do you think they'll keep him around, given the norms of the NFL? Do you think that they'll keep a third QB on?
So I think for sure he'll definitely be on the practice squad. Atlanta notoriously for the last couple of years have had quarterback 1, quarterback 2, practice squad quarterback. If they look at Felipe as this preseason goes on and they're like, holy cow, like he can throw it 60 yards. He runs up.
He can throw it 60 yards.
He's got
That's
a cannon.
Impressive. I didn't know that.
His accuracy is a little meh, but it's a lot of his decision making's poor. His pocket presence is poor.
So Felipe as a player, you're saying needs refinement, and
a lot of refinement.
Okay, and he can find that, or Atlanta can help him refine himself on the practice squad.
So he'll be sitting working with Matt Ryan for a whole year, and A.J. McCarron, who's he's a career.
What you see is what you get. I mean, A.J. it's all right there, right?
I was excited when Atlanta signed A.J. because he's going to be the best backup they've had in a long time. Matt Schwab was old and really wasn't doing a great job, and they kept him around for a few years just because they wanted another set of eyes.
Spare parts.
Yeah, they wanted another set of eyes. He was almost like a coach, a coach. He could really help Matt Ryan in that kind of way.
I'm sure Matt Schwab would go upside my head if he heard me call him spare parts.
I think even he knew it at the end. If you watched warm-ups before games with him,
his head was so
he was
bald.
doing half the warm-up, knowing that if he's coming in the game, it's not.
Well, you got to get
it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah, he'd get the wing loose, and that was pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
His head his head was so bald. I know I already said that, but so bald.
So AJ's going to come in. He's going to be the 2. Let's just talk about him a little bit. I don't expect him to start ever. He's not. No one's pushing Matt for the starting job. It's Matt's job. Yeah. There's a reason why Arthur Smith came in and they didn't trade him. In fact, they changed his contract for this year. But so he's pretty much going to be sticking around for at least 2 more years. And Arthur Smith said right away, like, Matt Ryan is a big draw of Atlanta. Yeah. Former MVP, great to work with, just a professional guy. So
he's certainly conducted himself in a very professional manner. And he's had 12 seasons with the Falcons, 12, most of which were successful. In the last, the last 6 or 7, he threw for over 4,000 yards. I mean, that's extremely productive.
Yeah, he's thrown for 4,000 yards every year since 2011.
So that would be, 7 years, right, Jeff?
10 years.
I wasn't doing
10.
the math. That's why we have
10.
you.
Yeah.
You punch out the math.
10, 21. Oh, no, 9, because it's not 21 yet. So you're right.
Let's just blaze past it. It was 7 to 10 years, somewhere in that range.
And if they weren't going to draft a quarterback this year, you're kind of buying into Matt just in that sense, because the chances you can find a replacement quarterback are going to be much, much harder than that. I mean, there were a lot of guys this year that were top tier, you would think, quarterback options in the draft. And quarterback is the hardest position to find and the most important. And Matt Ryan's a good one. And so they certainly bought him when they took Pitts.
One thing that was interesting, too, that Arthur Smith said is, yes, they were picking up the 4th spot. And so, yes, everyone's like, oh, like, when are you going to pick that high again? You got to grab the quarterback. And to his credit, he said, yeah, but we were getting the 4th quarterback off the board. Like, in other drafts, you're taking the 4th quarterback off the board. That could be anywhere from, pick 10 to pick, in the second round. So the quarterbacks that they possibly wanted weren't there, and they ended up
I've
going
got a
with Kyle
quick question that we kind of touched on. Matt Ryan, does he stick around for more than 2 years, or does he have more than 2 successful years in him?
And it's so hard to say, right? Like, look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady's going to be 44 next year, pushing the age.
Right, he's almost got 10 years on Matt Ryan.
Yeah, and so we don't know. I mean, Drew Brees retired, and he was ready to retire. I mean, his just arm strength wasn't there. But who knows? Like, we don't know.
Tom Brady is old enough that he could have fathered probably more than half the league.
Tom Brady. Yeah. He's played with...
Matt Ryan's old enough he could probably fathered half the league.
Tom Brady's played with kids, and they're played with dads and sons at this point.
That's insane. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Seriously, that's crazy.
Yeah. One thing that should help Matt with his longevity is a switch to a system that hopefully sets it up easier for him with a lot more play action and running. Takes a little bit more off of him, but doesn't necessarily hinder the offense, because he's had a lot on his shoulders the past few years. And if his arm talent does start to go a little bit, which is the normal reason quarterbacks kind of fade out, the read should be a little easier, not as reliant on him being top tier. Hopefully, that's the goal. That's what's going on. That's the big motion in the NFL
So
right now.
Preservation. You're saying that a lot of the coaches that were brought in, or some of the new members of the Falcons organization, were brought in probably in part to help preserve Matt Ryan.
Yeah, and just to make his job easier. Like that's the big thing in the NFL right now is making easy reads, and play action is proving to be one of the most effective ways to move the ball down the field and open up passing windows for the quarterback. It can make lesser quarterbacks look a lot better. And so
why would you say that is now, I guess, more so maybe than it has been in the past?
it's not that play action wasn't effective in the past versus now. It's analytically people are looking at what plays are run in a different way. Like in the past 10 years, analytics in all sports has started to change. Like you can see basketball, like the 3-point line always was effective, but now they're realizing it's really effective.
Sure.
So you see a lot more 3-point shooting, and if you can't hit the 3-point shot, you're not playing basketball. So the same type of thing is going through the NFL, using motion at the snap, play action, all this stuff to create easier reads for your quarterback, create wider throwing windows, just make the game easier, so that way offense should go better.
So, and the other thing too, just based off that, like Matt is an intelligent quarterback. He's experienced. This offense is going to be built less on like your overall arm talent. Like they're not necessarily going to ask Matt to throw it 50 yards downfield and hopefully a receiver catches it. This is going to be a lot of setup with a lot of play action, a lot of, running the ball and working off of that, dunking it down to Kyle Pitts. Then you take your deep shots. Whereas before in Dirk Cutter's offense, it was so stale. It was just like you knew Atlanta was going to go 4 wide. You knew they were going to pass the ball. We got, especially with Kyle Pitts we got 2 tight ends, both of which are good enough receivers that you don't know if we're going to run the ball or pass the ball.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Matt Ryan is an intelligent QB. He, that forehead, he might have an extra cortex in there.
I think he got that from Matt Schwab.
So Matt Schwab rubbed his bald head on Matt Ryan's head and gave him an extra cortex.
I guess so.
Matt Schwab, can you do that for me? I know a lot of people that could benefit from that.
So talking about Matt's season, last year, he threw for 4,581 yards. He had threw for 26 touchdowns. What do we think Matt's year is going to be this year? Because we're going to be running the ball more, so probably less attempts, but we're hoping a higher percentage of throws and more big plays. What could we see from Matt this year, you guys think?
Well, I think you're going to see a higher average completion. I think he's going to have less targets, but maybe end up around the same yardage, like less attempts.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see, like, Tannehill had a high average in Tennessee, and I think it's going to be more like that. He's not going to have to dink and dunk, kind of be the running game. Like in the past, he was like kind of the running game and a little bit of the running game and the passing game. So he had a lower average at times. I think he'll be up 8 to 8.5, or maybe 8.5, pretty solidly.
You're talking. So when you're saying 8.5.
Sorry, yards per completion, yards per pass play, type, and I think his completion percentage will be a little higher as well.
So his yards for completion last year was 11.3.
Sorry, I'm talking yards per attempt.
Gotcha.
So.
You think that'll be lower? Yards
I think it'll be higher.
Yards per attempt is going to be higher, and completion percentage will be higher. That's what you.
Yes, and he'll have less attempts.
Less attempts. Okay. Well, wow, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I guess just to segue off of what Jeff said, I don't know. I don't know this offensive model well enough. I don't feel comfortable enough to make a firm or definitive just to make a definitive prediction on what Matt will do. But I guess this is all just speculation. So in terms of Matt's production, I think it's hard to say without Julio. I think he'll have, to be honest with you guys, I think it's going to take him a little time. I think the beginning, the first half of the season, first quarter, maybe, I don't know. I think we're going to, progress is going to be slow. and I think it'll build and build and build. So I think he'll have a similar season to what he had last year. Point being, though, in regards to what Jeff said, I do think we'll see a tremendous uptick in the areas that Jeff completion, yards per throw. I don't think we're going to see that success until later on in the season. I think initially there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. That's just with any system, it takes time.
Yeah, it takes time for things to kind of get gelled together. And not
even
just
if you're one of the best quarterbacks in the league, like Matt Ryan.
Yeah, and it takes everybody's got to gel for the thing to work. So I think also, too, I would not be shocked to see a jump in touchdowns. Arthur Smith's had one of the highest percentages in the red zone of anyone since he's taken over in Tennessee. And I don't know, I should have looked this up earlier. I don't remember what Atlanta's percentage is, but I'll tell you from watching the games, it's low. There's a reason why we've had great kickers, and that's because they get a lot of attempts. Matt Bryant and Younghoe Koo have just killed it for us because we get down to the red zone and we can't do anything. So now you add Arthur Smith, you add Kyle Pitts, and a revamped run game, and I think we're going to see more touchdowns. Not just in the run game, but from Matt as well.
Yeah, I would think so. And I would think you're going to see a touchdown or two from some random skill player as well, throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had Derrick Henry with the jump pass last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be interesting. It should be fun, though.
Yeah, it'll be great. So now just to talk about A.J. McCarron a little bit more. A.J. in total, his career as a starting quarterback, he's 2-2. 2 wins, 2 losses. He played for the Bengals for 3 years. Then he played 1 year in Oakland, and then 2 years for Houston. Now I'm going to say this: if Matt goes down, A.J. McCarron is fine. He's not a starting quarterback for a reason, but he's good enough that he can win you games. This is going to be the best team, the best offense that he's played with in his entire career.
Easily.
Best offensive coordinator, best offensive line, probably the best skill positions.
Let me just say this. I hope he does not have to see the field. But
Yeah.
and I hope that we never find out the answer to this question.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, as you said, just my 2 cents here. I think he's a great backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He's a true pocket passer. He really is, and that's exactly what Atlanta. If Atlanta were to have an ideal, or which they do, in my opinion, an ideal backup quarterback, it'd look like A.J. McCarron. I mean, sure, one could ask, well, it'd be great to have, Aaron Rodgers, and it's like, well, that's just not realistic. We're talking about real life here, right? That's not real life. My point is, I agree. A.J. McCarron, I think he's a good fit, but I hope we never have to find out.
Yeah, and it's the nice thing when we signed A.J. McCarron, I was like I did a fist pump. I was like, yes, because it used to be if Matt Ryan went down, our season was over. And now it feels like if Matt Ryan goes down, if he goes down for the season, we're in trouble. But if Matt Ryan goes down for a couple games, A.J. McCarron can come in and do a good enough job that we might not lose every single one, or we might not, we might pull some, or be able to pull some out. He's decent. 6 touchdowns in his career, 3 interceptions. Again, on much worse offenses, much worse coordinators. He's fine. He's a good backup, a solid number 2 guy in the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think he fits kind of what Matt Ryan likes too. Instead of them taking an unproven guy who maybe he could be exciting in games or something, Matt Ryan really likes to work with his backup quarterback and diagnose everything. You see him on the sidelines, like with Schwab, like that's why they kept Schwab so long. It's not because like he could win, like you said. They want another veteran, clearly, that he can sit and talk with. Like, I think that fits Matt's comfort level. He wants somebody that not only is coach, but a player that can empathize with what he's thinking on the field.
Jeff, I really like what you're saying. Someone who can understand him and that he can bounce ideas off and will know what he's talking about. A.J. McCarron has, he played for Alabama. It was a big system out there when he played for It's still a big system. Point being is he's played under pressure. A.J. McCarron, I agree. He knows, he knows what it's like to play under serious pressure and, stress and duress. And he's produced, in those situations. So I agree. I think it's a great, in regards to what you said, Jeff, I think it's a great sounding board for Matt. I think it's a great sounding board for Matt. That's all I have to say. Yeah, I think he could probably, there may be things that AJ sees that Matt will listen to AJ and say, great find. As opposed to Felipe Frank says, hey, Matt, you didn't do this. You should do this. He'll say, Felipe, take off your practice jersey or go put your practice jersey back on.
Yeah. And kind of, you guys touched on it. AJ's seen a lot. He's been around. He's been in the league for a while. Went to Alabama. Big time situations. He's been in them. And so another thing I want to point out, TJ Yates. He was a former backup in Atlanta. He was also coached a little bit with the Houston Texans. He's an assistant quarterbacks coach. So TJ Yates actually coached AJ McCarron the last 2 years. So and Atlanta brought TJ on. I didn't know that. Yeah, and Atlanta brought TJ on to be a passing game specialist. Okay. So, Arthur Smith also played against McCarron for, I think, 2 games. Well, at least one game he played against McCarron. So Arthur Smith's seen McCarron a little bit, and they're also getting information from TJ Yates, who they clearly trust, they brought on. And so I think it's just going to be a good fit. I really enjoyed this side.
He'll fit into the system well. He really will. God forbid Matt Ryan goes down, A.J. McCarron will fit into the system well.
Yeah.
Or I think as well as we would suspect he would in comparison to Matt Ryan's ability or I guess how well he fit the system, right? That's really what I'm referring to.
Definitely. So now, with that, I want to touch on Felipe Franks, and I want the 2 things. One, I want you guys to think about, is he going to make because he's making the practice squad, in my opinion. That's a lock. But is he good enough to make the roster? And we're not going to know until we see what kind of happens throughout preseason, right? If he absolutely lights it up, or like Atlanta says, you know what, this guy's too good for us to, because if he goes to the practice squad, another team can poach him. So they might say, this guy's too good. We need to keep, he's worth stashing on the 53-man roster.
I mean, what you said, Thon, in regards to Felipe's, just his raw abilities, being able to throw a football 60 yards, his height, his weight, he's 6'6", he's 230 pounds.
He ran a 4.6.
He ran a 4.6.
4.61.
Honestly, I just don't know how you don't keep an athlete like that around. I mean, he's an athlete, and he has a ton of quarterback experience at both Florida and Arkansas. And I think you keep this guy. I agree. I think you keep this guy around because that's the future. You have to be able to. If you can't take people like that, I don't know what his attitude's like. And the reason I say attitude is because he's a rookie. It's like any rookie anywhere, you have to take that into question or consideration, right? What's their attitude like? Because with this kind of raw ability, he could kill it. He could kill it for Atlanta in 3-4 years after he's refined. After Matt Ryan, kicks the bucket.
After Matt Ryan's, his time's up, and
right.
Father Time is undefeated. He's going to get Tom Brady.
I hope they help refine this guy, and I hope he is willing to or receptive to the assistance.
So Sam Pittman, the Arkansas head coach, had nothing but great things to say about Felipe. I guess he came right in, transferred from Florida, and really just took over the locker room. Great leader.
Why did he transfer from Florida?
So just really unfortunate. So he played for Florida, and he was like really shaky. And I watched Florida a lot. I watched all the big SEC schools. And I was like, holy cow. Sorry, Felipe, but I was like, holy cow, this guy is bad. Really just making horrible throws, horrible decisions. Then so he comes in.
You know what though, and I like that you say that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but that sounds like a young guy. That just sounds like a young, inexperienced person.
Yep. I mean, I think he was a top.
Correctable. All correctable.
I think he was a top 10 recruit. Not recruit, but top 10 quarterback.
Coming out of high
definitely
school?
Top.
Okay.
Yeah. It was definitely a top 20 quarterback coming out of high school, 4-star recruit. So then he was supposed to start. He got hurt. Kyle Trask came in, played decent. They went into the next offseason. Felipe was supposed to be the starter coming in, and then I think it was 3 games in, he got hurt and had to miss the rest of the season. And so then Florida decided, all right, we're going to go with Trask, which ended up working out well for them. So Felipe then transferred to Arkansas. And Arkansas was horrible before Felipe got there. I mean, Felipe, they only won 3 games, but they were competitive and able to win those 3 games, where before Arkansas was just kind of getting smashed. So here's what my concerns about Felipe. Here's my concerns. One, he's got these really long arms, and so he's got a really slow release, and he can really telegraph it, which NFL DBs could easily read and kind of go and pick his balls off, deflect the balls, whatever. And his decision making is not great.
When you have a quarterback like Matt Ryan, though, I mean, if Matt Ryan can, give this kid 10% of what he's got, you could see a really, really great player. I mean, we could see a really, really great player. I'm just looking at right now. I was looking at this little meme or whatever. Matt Ryan standing next to Felipe Franks, and it says, "Fine, I'll groom you, buddy."
Yeah, he's a lot to learn. He has and I said this already, but this is what I love in a guy you're going to bring on, undrafted free agent. He is low,
man. The speed
low.
is just, if you're making those bad throws at college level, that's my only concern with this guy.
But he's got low risk.
Yeah, you're right.
Low risk, high reward. Big arm, athletic, big dude. Supposed to be a locker room guy. The issues, we saw this already, but makes poor decisions. He doesn't really anticipate throws very well, so he doesn't throw receivers open, if that makes sense. So, some quarterbacks, they'll throw the ball before the receivers open, and he doesn't really do that. All things that he can work on. Stares down targets. Again, he works with Matt Ryan for a couple of years. He legitimately could take over the starting quarterback job as an undrafted free agent. He's got the tools. Now we just got to see if he can figure it out. I don't know if I saw this already. Poor pocket presence.
Okay.
Just
which is something that, again, I just feel like with proper mechanics and some tips from the coaching staff, the quarterback coach Matt. Stuff that can be fixed because he's got the frame. As you say, poor pocket presence. I mean, with a 6'6", 230-pound frame, it's like you've got the makings to have a great pocket presence.
What is he? 235, 240.
He's massive, and he's 6'6".
Yeah.
I mean,
and we're talking. He has the raw ability. Yeah. Now, can he put it all together by the time? By the time Atlanta's ready to
let's
move
get
on.
some final votes. I'd like to hear some final votes, and I'm talking about career, not necessarily just this year, but does he fit the system for Atlanta? Does he make it as a player in the NFL?
And it's so hard to say. He fits the system. I mean,
does he though? Because he's not a pocket passer, and Atlanta they thrive with the pocket.
Well, that's what they've been.
Yeah, with Arthur Smith, they do a lot.
Tannehill's running for 30, 40-yard touchdowns last year.
I got to say, all right, I'll start then. I want this guy to make it. I want Felipe Franks to make it. I don't think he's going to. I seriously, seriously want him to make it. Felipe, I hope he makes it. But I just don't think he is. I'm not saying this for the roster. I'm just saying as a player in the NFL.
Yeah. If he's going to make it, this is where it's going to happen. He's got two solid veterans ahead of him. He's got all the talent in the world. He's got an incredible offensive-minded coach. He's got to do it in Atlanta.
Hopefully it's not like a Favre Rodgers situation. You remember when, Favre, He leaves and Rodgers tearing up. They're like, wow, like, did Favre coach you up? And he's like, no, not at all. We never talked.
Yeah.
And Favre was like, it's not my job to, mentor these new guys. It's like, dude, yeah, it is. That's like literally part of your job. But anyway.
Yeah. And I think he makes it at a minimum. I think he becomes Atlanta. I think he could become Atlanta's backup.
I hope he does. I mean, I really hope it works out because he's just got such a great frame. He's got a hell of an arm.
What do you think, Jeff?
I think he's going to certainly end up on the practice squad this year.
Does he make it as a player in the NFL?
I know, I'm starting there. He definitely, I don't think he makes the final roster this year. Goes practice squad.
Does he make it as a player in the NFL?
I think that he has a very tough road ahead of him that he has to learn.
Does he,
maybe
or
the
does
hardest
he not
part of the game at this level? That's a low percentage chance that he makes it in the NFL.
Got it.
He has a tough road ahead of him. There's a lot of guys who come in like him. Not a lot of them figure it out.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, like you were saying, I hope he does. He's got a tough road, but he's in a good spot.
You know what?
To do it.
Can I just rephrase that question? Because I think that's a bad way to phrase a question. Does he or does he not? And obviously, Jeff, I was kind of being facetious when I said that second, third time, just being obnoxious. Not facetious, but a better thing to say would be, hey, what's the ratio? Or like, what's the percentage that he does make it? What's your percentage that he doesn't make it, right? I'd put it at 70-30 he doesn't make it as a player in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Because I just want I wanted to show that it's not like I don't have some doubt about my own opinion, right? I absolutely think the guy has potential to make it as a player in the NFL. And the reason I say make it as a player in the NFL, because chances are if he makes it as a player in the NFL, like you said, it's going to be here in Atlanta and we're going to reap the reward.
I'm going to say 30% chance he makes it as a backup. And then to be a starter, I'll give it a 10% chance.
Yeah.
I've got 10% he makes it as a backup for more
so
than 1 year.
I actually give him a lot more than
It's just kind of like Jeff said, it's just so hard to go. There's a reason he was undrafted.
Well, right, and I totally agree. I thought I was going to be the one that lowballed him.
No, he's coming in at the hardest position, and he has to learn arguably the hardest part of playing quarterback.
Sure.
And that the decision making is so hard. They have such a small window.
Yeah.
And it's not going to wait, right? Like if let's say Matt goes in 2 years and Felipe's not ready, they're not going to say, "All right, Felipe." Like,
yeah, right. He's got to be ready, and when Matt's ready, when Matt leaves, he has to be ready.
We will know more this upcoming season if Felipe can push McCarron for that 2 job, or if he can make say Atlanta says he's too good to put on the practice squad. I like his chances a lot to make it in the future. If he's on the practice squad, it doesn't mean he won't make it. It doesn't mean anything.
It might mean something. It might mean his ambition is lacking. Maybe not though, because in the NFL, right? They don't just they don't just say, you know what, you made the roster, kid, because you have good ambition. Like everybody's ambitious, at that level.
Yeah.
So let me just go back on that.
Yeah, and I would be shocked with his skill set. I'd be shocked if he didn't at least make the practice squad. So it's not if he makes the final roster, if he pushes AJ McCarron for the number 2 spot, he's in really good shape.
He's way ahead on the development curve
for sure.
He has a long road development wise, so that's why practice squad just makes too much sense. If they give up on him before week 1, like he doesn't even make the practice squad, his career's over. Yeah. If he makes the practice squad, I'd say that's this 90% chance of what he does this year. I mean, if he makes the team, holy cow, be ready for something, because that means he's way ahead on development.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. I sure hope that that's the case, but like I said, I think we all agree chances are low, minimal.
So, guys, that's quarterbacks. We've pretty much discussed most of it. Matt Ryan, solid number 1. AJ McCarron, and by solid number 1, I mean solidified at number 1. We don't know. We could see MVP type year. We're expecting a good year for Matt Ryan. AJ McCarron, solid number 2, good backup. Going to be eyes for Matt. And then we've got Felipe Franks, who we're hoping has big things for the future, but not expecting much for the year. Again, this is Thon Ray. You guys can follow us at Falcons_drip on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Please make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever you need to do to get the alert for our next episode. If you guys enjoyed today, please leave us a review. It always helps us grow. Until then, see you next time. Rise up.